What's going on, everybody? You are watching Vikings Now by Chat Sports as we are here live talking about the latest around Brian Flores, some free agent targets, and also some cut candidates for your Minnesota Vikings. We actually do have some big time news around Brian Flores and him potentially being the next head coach for the Baltimore Ravens. But if you guys want Brian Flores to stay in Minnesota, give me those skulls down below in the comment section, and we'll give you guys some shout outs on today's show. Shout out to Purple Filth. Shout out to Terry Cole, Reed Southern, JFR, B2 Racing, all in the building. Appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. But we will show you guys the news here. Jordan Schultz was reporting that the Baltimore Ravens did officially request to interview Brian Flores. Now, this was the first request that Brian Flores has gotten so far. He also added in the note that Flores has an expiring contract in Minnesota and is hopeful to get a second opportunity to be a head coach. There's been a lot going on with Flores. Like, we're getting this report here that the Ravens are going to interview him. And then we also know, like, the Dallas Cowboys have shown a lot of interest in Flores. Right now, the odds for the next Raiders head coach, Brian Flores, is the overwhelming favorite. So a lot here is adding up where it kind of seems like Flores may be out of Minnesota. But, again, anything can happen. Like, what if the Ravens end up hiring Jesse Minter and the Raiders end up going in a different direction? There are some reports out there that maybe Max Crosby wouldn't be the biggest fan of Brian Flores due back to how he treated him when he was working out with Miami. So don't want to speculate too much on that, but there is still a chance he ends up coming back to the Minnesota Vikings, which would obviously be absolutely huge. But shout out to you guys for tuning in. Will in the building, Big O saying, do you think the Niners have a chance to win the Super Bowl? I do not, just with all the injuries they have. I just think it would be a lot to overcome. But, again, anything can happen in the NFL playoffs. What if Flores hits the lottery? Y'all, nothing but what ifs. What would Flores hitting the lottery have to do with anything? Connor Viking saying, sup, Pat? How you doing? Lego Fellow saying, if we lose Flores, even if we land Burrow, I don't think we're a Super Bowl contender. We are so screwed. Yeah, I don't want to be, too negative here on today's show. But if the Vikings do end up losing Brian Flores, it would be a catastrophic loss. I think this defense was perfectly built for Flores' strengths. Like, you have a bunch of versatile football players, like guys like Josh Metellus, guys like Andrew Van Ginkel. They're perfect scheme fits with what Flores wants to accomplish on any given game and any given play. So if he would somehow leave Minnesota, it would be catastrophic. But we'll see. Saying can't go back to having a McDonald's manager as the DC. I mean, yeah, the last DC before Flores was Ed Donatel, which we obviously know how that went. That was absolutely terrible. Well, the Bengals made it to the bowl with a bad defense. Yeah, that Bengals team, though, they weren't a terrible defense. Like, Lou Anarumo had a really good year there. They're about middle of the pack, and I guess the Vikings could have a middle of the pack defense without Flores, but I don't know. I'm just not feeling too good about the Vikings' chances into keeping Flores, but we'll wait and see what happens. But we got 3 shows coming up. Number 1, we're going to be creating some cap space for our Minnesota Vikings right now. They are about $30 to $36 million in the hole. Different reports there, but I think it's probably around 30 to 36 million. Then we will dive into some Vikings free agent targets. Again, even though the Vikings are in the hole right now, they will probably get themselves out of it. So there are 10 names that I want to go over. Then we will have a mailbag coming up here in about 30 or 40 minutes or so. So make sure you guys get a question in there. Hashtag Vikings to get up on the show. Would greatly appreciate it. Whatever you guys got to say about your Minnesota Vikings, we'll break it down. But, not a lot going on in Vikings land over the last, couple months here, but, a lot to talk about with Brian Flores and also with the cap situation with the Vikings. There's a lot to figure out, a lot of good cut candidates here, so we will dive into all that. And if you guys are ready to rock and roll, hit that thumbs up icon. Got 110 people in the building. If you guys could smash that thumbs up button, see if you can get to 25 likes. It would be appreciated. It's Chase Jett saying Harbaugh is trash. Sounds like you're going to see this weekend. You're talking about Jim Harbaugh. Yeah, we'll see what happens. But if you guys could, hit that thumbs up icon. If you guys are ready to go, just give me a skull down below in the comments section. We'll dive into it, how the Vikings can create cap space before NFL free agency. Brady then saying, can we trade KOC? We could hypothetically trade Kevin O'Connell. I don't think it's going to happen, but technically the Vikes could. Russ Johnson in the building saying, Skull, what's going on, Russ? Appreciate you for tuning in. Brady then also in the building. Why would teams stay away from Flores with his, or would teams stay away from Flores with his history in the NFL? Yeah, but again, I think it just takes one owner to, just say F it and just hire Flores. And I think it would be a great candidate. I honestly think teams are shying away almost too much from Brian Flores. I think he would be great. He just needs that other chance. So we'll talk about that a little more, but I do want to talk about how the Vikings can create some cap space here. Shout out to all of you guys for tuning in, but let's dive into the show, how the Vikings can create some cap space before free agency. What's going on, everybody? Welcome in the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman, and coming up on today's show, we're discussing how the Vikings can create some cap space before NFL free agency, because right now the Vikings are $30 million in the hole, which is actually 31st in the National Football League. And, this number fluctuates from different websites you look at. Like, Over the Cap has the Vikings $55 million in the hole. Spotrac has the Vikings $30 million in the hole. Another website has the Vikings around $36 million in the hole. But I'll just leave it at that, $30 million. Choose the most optimistic one for the Vikes. So how can the Vikes create the most cap space possible before free agency starts and add more talent to this team? We can look at some cut candidates here. And I think the number one most likely cut candidate for the Minnesota Vikings, a guy we've been talking about, even dating back to last offseason, is him getting cut this offseason, TJ Hawkinson. So we'll talk about all the contract, breakdowns here, the financial implications of cutting all of these players, but a pre-June 1st release, the Vikings will be taking on $12.5 million of dead cap. It will be saving $8.93 million for 2026. So that really is not too much of a benefit for the Vikings, but the post-June 1st release is this. It will be $5.3 million of dead cap in 26, and 2026 cap savings would be $16 million. I think this is incredibly likely. I think if I had to call my shot right now, the Vikings will most likely designate TJ Hawkinson as a post-June 1 release. He has not been the same player over the last couple of seasons, especially after that torn ACL that he suffered at the tail half of the 2023 season. And even in 2024, battling back, wasn't necessarily the same guy. And this year, I just don't really see the pop with TJ Hawkinson anymore. He can't really separate in man coverage. Even when he gets the ball in his hands, it's not like he's always been a great yak guy whatsoever. I think the Vikings need to move on, get younger, get more athletic at that tight end position, and him making, $20 million is just way too much in my opinion. So you guys let me know, would you cut TJ Hawkinson? Give me a C for cut or give me a K for keep. You guys let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. I am probably, no doubt, saying C for cut here. I think this one just makes too much sense financially for the Vikes. All right, number 2 here. We're going to be talking about Brian O'Neill, right tackle for the Vikings. Now, this is one that we haven't really talked about on the channel, but it does make a lot of financial sense. And this is no slight to Brian O'Neill. He's obviously one of the best right tackles in the National Football League. He has been the definition of consistency at that position. He never, has like a really bad game, and he'll also have some great games in there. But his floor is extremely high. Now, his pre- and post-June 1 release numbers are the exact same. They would only be taking on $3.7 million of dead cap, and you would be saving $19.5 million. So a huge financial benefit for the Minnesota Vikings, but you would also be letting go of one of the better right tackles in the league. His PFF numbers this year, about what it's been throughout his entire NFL career. Just really, really, really solid. I mean, 81.6 overall grade. His pass block, 76.4, and his run block, 84.5 as well. And that was also in 734 snaps for TJ Hawkinson. But TJ Hawkinson's Brian O'Neill, Brian O'Neill is one of those guys where I think the Vikings are going to eventually have to look to replace him in the future. And if they don't, that could be like a glaring hole that can kind of sneak up on the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I could see the Vikes eventually extending Brian O'Neill. The only thing is, how long are you going to extend? He is only 30 years old, so we have seen offensive linemen play to their mid-30s, even like a guy like Trent Williams playing until he's about 38 years old. So, I could see the Vikings extending him, and the extension savings, you would free up $14 million this year, which would be absolutely huge. So that would be big for the Vikes. And, yeah, I just think, Brian O'Neill's got a good chance to get extended this offseason, and, we'll wait and see how that eventually plays out. But watch out for him. And then another guy here, Javon Hargrave. Javon Hargrave obviously has not lived up to who we thought he was going to be when the Vikings signed him last year. And, giving him that 2-year, $40 million contract, a bit of a doozy for the Vikings. Again, not a whole lot of that was guaranteed, but again, the same numbers pre and post June 1 in terms of cutting Hargrave, $10.5 million of dead cap, $11 million of cap savings. Now, I'm not saying I would 100% do this, but I could see the Vikings doing this, just getting younger at that defensive tackle position because, they spent a lot of, resources on guys like Levi Drake Rodriguez, Tieran Ingram Dawkins, like Jalen Redmond's a stud. And, Javon Hargrave, even though we were getting on him because we haven't, seen, fully what we expected from him this season, he was still solid, especially in the second half of the year. I thought he played a lot better football. Ended up being rated 35th out of 134 defensive tackles, 32nd in pass rush. Obviously, he's not a great run defender whatsoever, but he was still 54th in the league. 31 pressures, 4 sacks. Now, 2 of those sacks were just quarterbacks running out of bounds right around him. Now, it's funny with Hargrave. Like, he had a great week 1 where I think he had 9 pressures week 1. Went 2 months with having less than 5 pressures in a game. And they really started to get it going at the second half of the year. So I would be down to bring Hargrave back. Gave him that contract. Might as well bank on him, turning into something. But, hey, if the Vikings do end up cutting Hargrave, Brian O'Neill, TJ Hawkinson, any of these guys, we will have you guys posted with everything around your Minnesota Vikings. So hit that subscribe button today. Lock us in. And don't miss a thing around your Minnesota Vikings. Now, I do want to tell you guys about today's presenting sponsor, and that is Factor Meals. And if you guys head to factormeals.com/VikingsChat50 off and use promo code VikingsChat50 off, we'll hook you guys up with 50% off your first Factor box, plus free breakfast for 1 year. Now, with the new year, it means you guys probably have some big goals. If you guys don't have any time to cook, Factor makes it easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs so you can eat well without the shopping or cooking. Now, I love Factor because they have no refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, no refined seed oils. I love the blackened salmon you guys see on screen. Even the Texas Cheddar Burger is very delicious as well. So you guys can check them out. They have over 100 rotating weekly meals, high protein, calorie smart, Mediterranean diet, and GLP-1 support. So head over to factormeals.com/VikingsChat50 off and use promo code VikingsChat50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. This offer is only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Make healthier eating easy with Factor. Link for that is in the comments section and description of today's show. All right, cut candidate number 4 here for the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to go with Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, I think, he was pretty damn good the second half of the year, especially that Lions game when he came back. Thought he showed a lot of good burst in that matchup. But again, the numbers for Aaron Jones aren't crazy. You'd only saving, net of $1.2 million, taking on 6.8 in dead cap, $8 million in cap savings. Now, I think we could see the Vikings get ultra aggressive here with how much they are in the hole. You could see a guy like Aaron Jones where if you were financially set up well, you wouldn't even think about cutting Aaron Jones. But with where they are, I could see it happening, but I still doubt it. I think they value him so much in that locker room, just the vibes, the energy he brings. Clearly they're a massive fan of bringing him back with the injury history, with the amount of mileage they had. And I do still think the duo of Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason are good enough. We really saw when the Vikings were running the ball well in certain parts this season, those two looked fantastic. And I think the biggest reason why the Vikings weren't able to run the ball as well as we thought is because Kevin O'Connell didn't stay committed to it. If Kevin O'Connell can change his scheme, if he can stay more committed to the run, we can see the more benefit of Aaron Jones' contract, of that trade for Jordan Mason. We're looking at those two moves. We're saying, hey, the Vikings actually got a good deal on both those decisions. So I think they should just ride it out with Jones. I doubt they cut him, but you never know. They might get extra aggressive this offseason. And another guy who the Vikes brought in this past offseason was Jonathan Allen. Gave him a mammoth of a deal, which obviously didn't end up working out. We can call that deal a bust, and there's really no benefit for the Vikings making him a pre-June 1 release. You would have a dead cap hit of $17.3 million, and the cap savings would only be $4.28. Now, if you do designate him as a post-June 1 release, it gets a little better, $12.6 million in dead cap, and then the cap savings would be $8.95 million. But with Jonathan Allen, it's just unfortunate that he didn't end up working out because, on paper, Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, Jalen Redmond, Andrew Van Ginkel, Jonathan Gennard, Dallas Turner. Like, the Vikings should have had a great defensive line, especially with having the breakout season they got from Redmond. So I think you probably just keep him, see if he can get back to maybe a little vintage year for Jonathan Allen, but we'll see what happens. Now, the Vikings could restructure 3 guys. And the first guy we're going to talk about here, obviously number 18, got the biggest contract on the football team. Again, I doubt this happens for the main reason that Jefferson wants to get that money up front. Now, maybe you restructure him and you give him a massive signing bonus, which would obviously encourage Jefferson to sign that, but the restructure savings are $18 million, so really doubt the Vikings end up going, down that route. But there's also 2 more here. I mean, you got guys like a Christian Darrisaw who could potentially get restructured, left tackle for the Vikes. He's also on one of the bigger deals here, which, again, with these restructure candidates, most likely this does not happen. But again, with the pinch the Vikings are in right now, you could open up $9.2 million. Now, there also is some reporting out there that the Vikings want to bring in extra tackle competition with the uncertainty around Darrisaw's injury, which apparently that really threw a wrench in things in terms of game planning this year, because when you have one of the best left tackles in the league, and it obviously changes the game plan. Like, if you got him there, he's playing good football, it can open up everything offensively, but when you don't, it can, force the offense, overcompensate to that side of the offensive line. But you could free up $9.24 million. But the guy I think is most likely to get restructured and frankly just extended, Jonathan Gennard. Now, there is 2 sides to this Gennard coin here. Gennard's an absolute stud. If you just look at the raw numbers for Gennard, you see 4 sacks, probably like, all right, he didn't have that good of a season. But if you watch the Vikings, you saw this guy dominate certain games. He was fantastic against the run this season. 12.95 savings in terms of restructure, but I think it's more likely that they end up extending him because he's only got 2 years left for $46 million. Give him a little bit of a pay raise, make him happy. He's, in the prime of his career right now, had a lot of pressures, just didn't have those result in the sacks. Also, he was playing hurt throughout the entire season. 58, still one of the better players in football, so hopefully they end up, keeping him there. And it's also $95 million to save him there. But, hey, appreciate all of you guys for watching today's show. If you guys made it to the end of today's show, just hit me with a SKOL down below in the comment section. And, tough times being a Vikings fan, especially with the cap situation right now. But, there are ways around it, and we can still have some fun in free agency. So, if you guys made it to the end, give me the SKOL down below. We'll get on out of here. As always, let's go Vikes. All righty. What's going on, everybody? Vikings Scholar in the building. What's going on, Brody? Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Yeah, I saw the defensive tackle the Vikings picked up from the CFL. Maybe another Jalen Redmond guy. We're actually going to do a video on him in the future, Jesse. Wesley in the building. What's going on? All right, again, we will be getting into a mailbag here. So if you guys got questions for me, just hashtag Vikings down below in the comments section. Or if you guys want to super chat and support the show, get those questions in there. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. You got to replace the GM. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Fortunately, it's looking like Kwesi's not going anywhere. That's all right. That's all right. Could Flo reject a head coaching job? He could, but I think if it's with the Ravens, he's not. I think you would just keep it. Because, you think about the Ravens' position. You get the superstar quarterback in Lamar Jackson. You get the stability of the Ravens organization. I would assume Flores, that would be ideal. Now, I also think with Flores, I don't think he would take maybe the Raiders' job. It could be a job he could turn down, but I think there's no doubt that Ravens job would probably be incredibly enticing to a guy like Brian Flores. But if you guys got questions on Flores, make sure you guys use hashtag Vikings down below. Ted, get a question in there. Jesse, get a question in there. Big O, any question you got around your Minnesota Vikings, I would greatly appreciate it. Just drop those down below in the live chat, and we'll get those up on screen here in about 15 minutes or so. It would be greatly appreciated. Horrible trade, Will for Pat. What are you thinking? You saw the Will Reichard, Patrick Mahomes trade idea. We're saying no to that. That's what I was thinking. Will Reichard, untouchable. We'll see. We'll see. Will Reichard for nothing less than the entire earth. I'm with you. Will Reichard, special teams player of the month in the NFC. That was pretty cool for him. Congrats to Will. Appreciate you, Reed Southern, getting a question in there. Who's some replacements for Queso? I'm sure you meant Kwesi. I don't know. I haven't really looked in. GM replacements are weird. It's tough to look into that. Like, the only guy I know of is, like, Ian Cunningham of the Chicago Bears. Maybe him. I know he's getting a lot of looks from the Atlanta Falcons. Thank you, Mark, for getting a question in there. Again, hashtag Vikings down below. Mailbag coming up here. But let's talk about some free agent targets for the Minnesota Vikings. I got 10 names I want to dive into. We'll just fly through these 10 names that you guys should keep your eyes out on. Obviously, Vikes don't have a ton of money in free agency, but you can always push money back. You can always work around it. Even though the cap is a myth in the NFL, kind of joke is a joke, but you can still work around it. So we'll dive into it. 10 free agent targets for the Minnesota Vikings heading your way. Appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. Hit that thumbs up icon, and let's do it. We're going to be talking about NFL free agency on today's edition of Vikings Now by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman, and I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. So coming up, we got 10 free agents that all of you guys need to keep your eyes out on heading into free agency. I understand the Vikings are about $30 to $40 million in the hole right now, but there are ways to get out of the hole and potentially pick up maybe one or two of these guys we'll talk about on today's show. But let's look at the positions of need here for the Minnesota Vikings. And I kind of have these in order. I think the secondary is the biggest position need for the Vikes, safety and cornerback. And they obviously got the backup quarterback position. I do think middle linebacker, especially if Eric Wilson doesn't come back, that could be a big position in need. If they do end up cutting TJ Hawkinson, watch out for a tight end. And then the center spot, who knows what's going on with Ryan Kelly? We'll wait and see. And then if you do let go of a Javon Hargrave or maybe you trade a Jonathan Allen, defensive tackle could be a sneaky need. And then same thing could be said about running back if you do end up letting go of Aaron Jones. So we'll talk about these names here in a second, but I was thinking big before I was scripting out today's show, and we are 31,000 subscribers away from 100,000 subs. I cannot believe I even get to say that. That would be awesome if we could hit that eventually. My goal is by the end of next football season. We'll be at 100K subscribers. Right now, we're at 68,726. So today's goal, let's see if we can get closer to the 69,000 subscribers. I think it's obtainable. There's probably 300 of you watching right now who aren't subscribed. So if you guys could hit that subscribe button today, change it, and help us get closer to 100,000 subs. All right, so these aren't like the top free agents available by any means. This is just kind of a combination of, one, how much money these guys are going to potentially go for in free agency, and also their scheme fit with the Minnesota Vikings. So keep that in mind. And the number one guy we're going to talk about is Reek Woolen. Obviously, the Vikings have a massive need at the cornerback position, and Reek Woolen, 6'4" corner, super aggressive, really good tackler. I love the swagger and the intensity he plays with, and watching that Seahawks defense really fly around. Like, Reek Woolen fits right into that, and I kind of wish the Vikings, kind of had that mentality in their secondary. Like, Harrison Smith, he's obviously not the same guy in terms of, him being able to hit hard like he did back in the day, but I do think the Vikings need more secondary players at the DB and safety position where these guys can hit. And Reek Woolen does hit. 6'4", can get up, play some press man. And, even though he started off struggling early on in the year in Seattle, he's really turned around over the last couple of months. And he's a big part of that defense. So if you could somehow pry him, I don't think he would go for a whole lot, but he would probably want maybe a 2 to 3 year deal. TBD on how much the average annual salary would be, but Reek Woolen would be near the top of my list. Now, this would be a home run signing for the Vikings. I don't know if they would have the money for this, but Devin Lloyd. Now, I do think Devin Lloyd, and I think he's a tremendous player, one of the better linebackers in the league, but I do think he's a little overvalued, mainly because that pick six he had on Patrick Mahomes, and people just thought this guy was looking like the next Ray Lewis out there, and he is very, very talented. And he'll probably get a hefty payday because even PFF graded him out extremely well. An 89.1 overall grade, third in the National Football League. Pass rush, solid. Run defense, solid. Coverage, solid. So this is a do-it-all linebacker. Would be a perfect scheme fit with the Brian Flores defense. And, if the Vikings do decide not to bring back Eric Wilson and you want to pair Lloyd next to a guy like Blake Cashman, I would have a lot of interest there. So Devin Lloyd, probably going to get a pretty penny, but we'll wait and see if the Vikings can, free up this money to go sign a guy like Devin Lloyd. Would probably want around, pretty much like a 3-year deal, but we'll wait and see, how the Vikings end up playing that out. But Devin Lloyd, I would have some interest there. But we'll see how the Vikings end up playing this because, at the linebacker position, especially with the Vikings kind of in cap hell right now, I'm not too sure if the Vikings are going to want to be, give all of the free agency money to one guy like Devin Lloyd, where I could see the Vikings kind of playing it out where it's okay, you can kind of just divvy up money where it's all right, let's go get that extra CB4. Let's go get this extra, whatever at that position. So we'll really see how the Vikings, end up playing it. But, he's one of the better linebackers in the league. I'm a massive fan of his game. And, we'll see. Again, he's graded out extremely, extremely well. And especially, he would be one of those dream guys with the Flores defense. So we'll see. But another safety here that we could talk about, Jalen Hawkins. Now, listen, he's 28 years old. Ball hawk safety for the New England Patriots, having a really, really good year in New England. And he's a guy with his age. I think the Vikings could kind of give him on a bargain deal, but this is like a starting safety. You're going to give him starting safety money if you do end up bringing him in. Extremely talented safety, grades out very, very well according to PFF. 83.3 overall grade, which is actually 5th out of all safeties this season. 74.0 pass rush, run defense, very solid against the run, can come down, play in the box at a high level, coverage grade, solid as well. And he's also played, pretty much this entire season. So watch out for a guy like that. Jalen Hawkins, kind of a very underrated name in the NFL. I knew somewhat about him, but I didn't know he was having this good of a year. So maybe he could be a good scheme fit. Again, hopefully they keep Flores because this guy would be a perfect fit at the safety spot. How about a CB here? Jalen Watson. Jalen Watson, I will say this, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. He probably is the best form tackler in the National Football League. This guy's an absolute stud. Again, physical corners. I think the Vikings need more of that because I am so sick and tired of seeing an Isaiah Rodgers kind of step up and just get his ass run over. Isaiah Rodgers, Byron Murphy, pretty solid in coverage, but these guys don't play the run too well. Jalen Watson does that. You see his run defense grade, 83.5. That was 6th in the National Football League. And overall PFF grade, 74.9. So that's 13th in the league there. So watch out for Jalen Watson as well. And then how about a running back? I want to talk about Kenneth Gainwell here. Kenneth Gainwell impressed the hell out of me in that one Sunday night game against the Baltimore Ravens. And he's one of the best dual threat running backs in the National Football League. And I do think the Vikings, maybe that's a wrinkle in the Kevin O'Connell offense that we need to see more of because they do throw the ball to Aaron Jones here and there, but they don't throw it as much as I would prefer. And Gainwell, 73 receptions on 85 targets, 486 yards, 6.7 yards per catch, and 3 touchdowns on the season. Now, this would be a signing. Even if they keep Aaron Jones, I would have some interest in Gainwell, but I fully expect the Steelers to, want to bring him back. But I'll ask you guys this. Do you want the Vikings to add another running back? Should they sign one? Give me an S for sign. Give me a P for pass. You guys, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. I'm going to probably say it depends on who. If it's Gainwell, yes. But again, it's probably just on a vet min type of deal there. We'll dive into more free agent targets here in just a second, but let me tell you guys about today's presenting sponsor, and that is Factor Meals. Now, head to factormeals.com/VikingsChat50 off and use promo code VikingsChat50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Now, in 2026, you guys probably got some big goals, and if you guys don't have any time to cook, well, Factor makes it easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs so you can eat well without the shopping or cooking. Now, I love Factor because they have no refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, and no refined seed oils. So they have meals that fit your goals and schedule. It's healthier eating, calorie management, and more protein. I love the blackened salmon, love the Texas cheddar burger, and they have over 100 rotating weekly meals, high protein, calorie smart, GLP-1 support, and ready-to-eat salads. So head on over to factormeals.com/VikingsChat50 off. Plug in promo code VikingChat50 off to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. This offer is only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Make healthier eating easy with Factor. All right, let's dive into the rest of the free agent targets here. And the first one being Cade Otton, tight end for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think Cade Otton's one of the more underrated tight ends in the National Football League. And again, this gets back to if the Vikings want to get cheaper at that position, Cade Otton is a hell of a choice. Now, first 4 years in the NFL, really good. Again, for just a tight end who's not like a heavy focal point in the offense, he still produces pretty well. Really good movement. Really good in man coverage, really good at finding soft spots in the zone. If you let go of TJ Hockenson, I like the combo of Otton and Josh Oliver. You maybe take that money elsewhere, so watch out for Cade Otton, potentially being a Viking. And then how about number 7 now? Nahshon Wright. I did not want to put Nahshon Wright on here, mainly just because he was on the Vikings practice squad last year, so it kind of stinks to be talking about him right now because the Vikings should have already had him. But listen, Nahshon Wright's having a very up and down year. I think you see all the splash plays. You see, the pick six he had against McCarthy. I think he had another pick six at some point this season, but he's got 5 interceptions, but he has allowed a lot of yards. 725 yards. And one Sunday night game against the San Francisco 49ers, he allowed over 100 yards, and he's allowed 53 or 53 receptions on 83 targets. And his PFF grade, 65.1, coverage grade, 63.4. So, even though the wild plays with Nahshon Wright are great, he looks like he would be a top DB in the league. He does get beat a whole lot. So this would be a boomer bust signing. I don't think the Vikings will go after him, but I could see another team overpaying for this guy extremely. But Nahshon Wright's another name to watch out for at the DB position. Now, how about another guy who I'm a massive fan of? Alex Anzalone. Obviously, Vikings fans are probably very familiar with his game. He's been a glue guy for this Lions defense for the last couple of seasons. Always healthy, always just a badass out there. And that's what I think of Anzalone as. Over 1,000 snaps this season. Really solid in coverage. Really good against the run as well. Has badass hair. And Anzalone, I do think he would be a good fit next to a guy like Blake Cashman. Very intelligent player. I think he could do what Eric Wilson just did this past season, but even at a higher level. And also, he would probably be a guy you could get for 2 years, $10 million. So Anzalone, talk about one of those bargain signings that the Vikings can make this offseason. Watch out for him. Now at the center position, let's talk about Tyler Linderbaum, potentially the best center in the National Football League. He's going to be one of the most sought-out free agent targets for not just the Vikings, but damn near every single team in the National Football League. And, he did start off the season pretty slow. Couldn't really find his rhythm too much, but then he really started to heat up, and he was just not allowing any pressures, being an absolute mauler in the running game. Ended up having an 83.1 overall PFF grade, which is 4th in the National Football League. Played just over 1,000 snaps and ended up being the 5th highest graded center in the whole league. So Linderbaum, it would cost a decent amount, but if you are hypothetically rolling with McCarthy, whatever quarterback it is, it would be nice to have that stability at that center position. Oh, last one up here on our free agent target list. We got to talk about the backup quarterback position, and that being Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco had a great year for what he was asked to do. Now, obviously, Flacco was not the guy he was back at the Baltimore Ravens. Extremely, obviously older, but I do think at the Vikings, if they end up rolling with J.J. McCarthy, and he's the no-doubt guy, he's QB1, he gets that stamp of approval from the brass in Minnesota, Joe Flacco would make a ton of sense, and honestly, he just needs to be signed. It is an absolute joke that, honestly, in my opinion, if the Vikings signed Flacco over Wentz, the Vikings are probably in the playoffs right now. Because you probably win one of those games that Wentz lost. Flacco probably wins them. So, yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with Flacco there. But I think if they do roll out with McCarthy next season, which, again, I don't know what's going to happen, but if they do, go get that high-end backup, and Joe Flacco fits that bill. Now, if you guys could, name a free agent you want the Vikings to sign down below in the comment section. If I had to pick one on this entire list, I think I'm going to go with probably Jalen Watson. Probably go with Jalen Watson there. Yeah, Jalen Watson. Vikings need a better tackling corner, and he's physical, fantastic. I think he would be a great scheme fit, especially if they keep Flores. But you guys let me know your thoughts down below. We'll get on out of here. As always, let's go Vikes. Alrighty. You trying to make the team all white dudes with long blonde locks, just like the Vikes logo? I didn't even think about that. Anzalone and Andrew Van Ginkel on the field at the same time would be electric. I should have mentioned that in the video. That's good stuff, Big Bear. Don't forget, it took Flores 3 years to build his defense. Deep ball killed him if D-line doesn't get to the QB. I love his defense. A full season, it'll be a monster. I don't know, me too. Like Flores' defense, we saw it at Miami too. If you go look at the numbers when he was at the Dolphins, they started off as like 23rd, jumped up to 7th, then jumped up to 5th, and it was very similar to what happened here at the Vikings because it is such a complex scheme where like these guys, it takes them a little bit to get adjusted to it because it's not just some basic, like you're never really running like just chalk coverage. You are really asking a lot out of these players, so we'll see. Big Bear saying Kirk at 10 mil is backup best option. I wouldn't be upset about Kirk at all, especially at that price tag. But if you guys could get a question in there, what's going on, Time Man the Buckeye, hashtag Vikings or super chat to get up on today's show, I would greatly appreciate it. Get those questions in there. Anything you want to know about the Minnesota Vikings, free agency, Brian Flores talk. If you guys don't know the big news today, Brian Flores was officially requested by the Baltimore Ravens. And I think he's got a good chance to be the Ravens' next head coach. So we will see. I just had somebody hit me up and said, hire Harbaugh and demote Kevin O'Connell. No. I would much rather have Kevin O'Connell than John Harbaugh. As you guys should too. Alrighty, get those questions in there. Hashtag Vikings down below. Time Man, get one in there. Big Bear, get a question in there. Appreciate you, Reed. Yeah, hashtag Vikings. Corey Miller, appreciate you. Price would be awesome. Either of the Notre Dame running backs. Price or Love would be sweet. Ravens would be a very fun watch if Flores goes there, Lego. I am 100% with you. I think from a Ravens perspective, I think that would be a home run hire. If we get Joe, would you want to keep JJ? Yeah, I mean Joe Flacco would be the backup. He wouldn't be the starter. By any means, I have seen that Wake Forest running back getting a lot of love lately, Corey. The Twitter nerds love him. Yeah, I know. I wish Flores would be the head coach as well. All right, hashtag Vikings. Appreciate you guys for getting a question in there. We're going to dive into this mailbag here. If you guys got any more, super chat, hashtag Vikings. Get up on today's show. Not a lot of juice around the Vikings right now, which is a little unfortunate. But that is just, it is what it is. It is what it is. All right, let's do it. Let's dive into this mailbag. Appreciate all of you guys. Again, if you guys have a question while we're in it, just use hashtag Vikings or super chat. And let's talk about all you guys want to talk about on today's mailbag. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. We have a good old-fashioned mailbag coming up on today's show, where it's just me and you guys chopping it up about the Minnesota Vikings. A lot going on right now around the Vikes. Brian Flores, J.J. McCarthy. We'll talk about it all on today's show. We're going to start off with the diehard here, Lego fella, coming in with the first question, saying, which Vikings team is more likely to win a playoff game? Year 2 McCarthy and Flores stays, or land Burrow but Flores leaves? This is a fantastic question, Lego Fella. I really appreciate you for this. So, all right, so you got year 2 McCarthy and Flores stays, or land Burrow but Flores leaves. Wow, this is putting me in a tough spot here. Okay, so obviously, we could just call it like it is. Like if you have year 2 McCarthy compared to a Joe Burrow offense, we have no idea. Now, I do think McCarthy is kind of an unknown. And could he take a massive step up in year 2? Absolutely. But, like, you would have the certainty of like, oh, Joe Burrow. Like, I know that offense. Like, if we got Joe Burrow, kept the offensive line, kept Jefferson, Addison, all the weapons, like that would be a top 3 offense. One of the more explosive offenses in the National Football League. So you'd have a top 3 offense, and I think the Vikings defense, even if Flores would leave, would probably still be top 20. Maybe you go get a Raheem Morris. Kevin O'Connell has that connection there. Year 2 McCarthy and Flores days. I would still go land Burrow, but Flores leaves. That's what I would say. Because, again, there's just too big of a question mark on McCarthy. Like, I do think there would be more of an answer with, like, Flores leaving, where it'd be like, okay, you could go get a Raheem Morris. You could maybe get a Jim Schwartz, one of these other defensive coordinators, where I don't think the fall off between, like, Flores and another defensive coordinator would not be as extreme as, like, Joe Burrow, for example, and year 2 McCarthy. So I would rather take the quarterback, most important position in all of sports. And if the Vikings got Joe Burrow with all the weapons they have offensively, they would win a playoff game. The Purple Phil's coming in saying, if he leaves, talking about Flores, do you think we'll hire a DB coach and passing game coordinator or passing game coach Durante Jones, or our linebackers coach Mike Saravo, or someone else? There is a lot of buzz around the Vikings. I think it was Alec Lewis today did mention that if the Vikings do end up losing Brian Flores, they're more likely to go with the internal option. I would much rather go with the passing game coach and the DB coach Durante Jones. Just mainly when you think about like the Flores system, I think it's asking more out of your DBs than your linebackers. Like, your linebackers are necessarily just like bulls in the china shop, where like you are most of the time, like, yes, you're showing some disguise, but you're mainly just like getting after the ball. I would rather go Durante Jones. Don't really have too good of an answer. Like, it's probably like 51-49 there. But I would prefer the Vikings go external. I don't think any of these guys could replicate what Flores does. I would rather have another guy, like a more established guy, come in, bring their own system. Like, have Raheem Morris come in, bring his system. Have Jonathan Gannon come in, bring his system, instead of going with a guy like Durante Jones. Maybe he would end up being a great defensive coordinator, and I could be wrong on this. But I would rather go external rather than these two internal options. Blinky, what's going on? Hot take. I think Flores would have a short shelf life as a head coach due to evidence without a fantastic offensive coordinator. He is allergic to offense. What say you? So you're saying Flores would potentially be fired quickly if he doesn't get the offensive coordinator hire, correct? Very well. It could be on the table, especially with this falling out with Tua and the whole Dolphins organization. Like, there is some evidence there that if he doesn't land that offensive coordinator position correct, then maybe he could have a short shelf life. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like Flores, wherever he goes, like, that defense is going to take another level. Like, if he goes to Baltimore, like, guys, Baltimore has way better personnel than the Vikings do. He would turn that defense into one of the best defenses I think the NFL has seen over the last couple of years. Like, they would be the best defense next year. I think they would be a historically good defense. Like, they'd be better than the Texans. They would be better than the Broncos for sure. They'd be better than the Packers. I think if Flores went to Baltimore, Kyle Hamilton would be he would be one of the best players in football. Metabike would be one of the best interior defensive linemen. Like, they just, like, Roquan Smith in that system. Like, they just got dogs. I'm not saying the Vikings don't have dogs. They just don't have the dogs that Baltimore would have. And he would just raise that ceiling, raise that floor through the roof. And also, if he goes to Baltimore, and again, it depends on the team he goes to. Like, if he goes to the Raiders, I think I agree with you, Blanky, where maybe that shelf life would be short, since you would have to be banking on a rookie quarterback in Mendoza, banking on that offensive coordinator and Mendoza gelling. But if you would go to Baltimore, Lamar, Derrick Henry, it would just be, the floor would be higher offensively. Where, like, I think Lamar, no matter what, would give Baltimore top 15 offense, and I think Flores would turn that into the best defense in the National Football League. But good question right there, Blinky. Jujorski going on saying, do you think Harry is coming back for another year? Doesn't sound like it. I think with all the antics at the last home game, the last game of the season, like him coming off the field and him also joking around, and apparently he was going to come in for the last play on offense if LaFleur wasn't so much of a douchebag and wanted to, get those 3 points on the board. Apparently Harry was going to go knee the ball out. He was joking around. He said, I wanted to give a little green 19, take the snap, and take the knee. So I'm going to say no. But you never know. Like, Harry could change his mind in a couple of months. Maybe starts getting that itch back. Maybe the Vikings reach out to him. Like, they pretty much had to pull him out of retirement last offseason. Like, we all thought Harry, like, don't trip. We all thought Harrison Smith was for sure going to retire last offseason. So maybe it happens again, but 1% chance Harrison Smith comes back is where I'll call it. I'll get to more of your guys' questions here in a second. But if you guys could, head on over to factormeals.com/VikingsChat50 off and use code VikingsChat50 off to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Now, I absolutely love Factor. I use it almost every single day of my life. And if you guys have big goals for the new year and maybe no time to cook, Factor makes it easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs. So you can eat well without all the shopping or cooking. And Factor, why I love them, no refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, no refined seed oils, which is huge for my diet. And they got a bunch of good options. Blackened salmon, the Texas cheddar burger is great, but they have over 100 rotating weekly meals. You heard that correctly, 100 rotating weekly meals. And they're always fresh, never frozen, ready in about 2 minutes, no prep, no stress. So if you guys could, head on over to factormeals.com/VikingsChat50 off and use promo code VikingsChat50 off to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. This offer is only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Make healthier eating easy with Factor. That link will be for in the comment section and description of today's show. All right, what's going on, Big O? Saying, if we get Joey B, would you want to try to keep McCarthy and try to let him develop, or would you have to send him over? I'm assuming you would have to send him over, even though, McCarthy's stock is not too high right now in NFL circles, but I'm assuming the Bengals will at least want something in return, at least at the quarterback position, just to kind of give their fans maybe false hope. And plus, like, if you get Joe Burrow, like, you're not just trading for him for, like, where it'd be like a Matthew Stafford, where it'd be like a 1 or 2 year run. You get Joe Burrow, you're hoping this is your guy for 5 to 6 to potentially up to 8 years in this offense. So I would be more than willing to let go of McCarthy. Now, if you go get a guy like Kyler Murray, if you go get a guy like Baker Mayfield, that's another situation because those guys aren't good enough for me to just like cut bait on J.J. McCarthy. Yes, it would be better in the short term, but you never know what J.J. can develop into. So if it's Joe Burrow, kind of gotta, like, if the Bengals want him, you have to give him up. But no matter who the quarterback is besides Burrow, I'd hope the Vikings would want to keep McCarthy and let him develop behind the scenes. Landon saying, if Brian Flores gets taken by a different team, who do you think is the top candidate for the Vikings defensive coordinator? I think it's Raheem Morris. Him and Kevin O'Connell, they were the coordinators back when the Rams won the Super Bowl in 2021. KOC, the offensive coordinator. Raheem Morris, the defensive coordinator. So I would probably guess, probably Raheem. Watch out for Rich Gannon, maybe. Jonathan Gannon, excuse me. Maybe the Vikings go internal, like Durante Jones, Mike Savaro. Al Harris could be another option. Jim Leonard, Jim Schwartz. But I do think Raheem Morris would be the favorite by a pretty decent margin. Mark Spill, what's going on? Saying, do you think Dallas Turner could be one of the best edge rushers, I'm assuming, missed out there in the league? Yeah, I think he can. I think what Turner showed, especially in the second half of the year, was like, it wasn't just the production with Turner, but it was just a pop. Like, I still remember in that Packers game, I mean, his closing speed and his get-off speed, it was different, man. And I am going to eventually go back and just watch all his pass rushing snaps this offseason just to – I'm going to try to document, like, how good each move was or, like, what's his real, like, calling card is, what his bread and butter is. But I think his bread and butter, at least just from watching, like, the TV copy, is just his get-off speed. His get-off speed's absolutely ridiculous. He closes that gap to the quarterback where it's not just, like, good level. It's not great level. It looks like all-time level. He does remind me of Von Miller, where he's a super just kind of rangy athlete. He just is he's a freak, man. He is a total freak. And I think once he keeps on developing, keeps on putting muscle on that frame like Dallas Turner, it would not shock me if he's a guy that's eventually ripping, like, maybe he's like a Brian Burns, where he's ripping like 13, 14 sack seasons. So, shout out to Turner. Really impressed by him the second half of the year. Reed Southern saying, who do you think our number one guy is for our first round second round and third round picks for the 2026 NFL draft. First round, I mean, you're not going to get them, but I'll probably say Caleb Downs. If you can't get Caleb Downs, watch out for Dylan Thieneman, Oregon safety Dylan Thieneman. Go look up his highlights. This guy's awesome. Kind of reminds me of Harrison Smith a little smaller. It does remind me of Harry the Hitman. Another guy in the first round. Vikings are in an interesting spot. Like, you could go with Jeremiah Love. I wouldn't hate Jeremiah Love. I also wouldn't hate the Vikings. Just go get a DB, like a Mansour, Delane. Take a risk there. DBs are tough to draft. But Delane would be a good option. The Terrell guy, he's an interesting option. But, yeah, we'll see. We'll see on that one. But I don't really know too much about the third round just yet. Just focus on first and second round. But Dylan Thieneman in the second round, watch out for him. He would be an absolute stud. Corey Miller. Hey, Pat, do you have any running back crushes in the draft outside of Love? Price would be an awesome option. I do like Price. Hey, if Vikings can lead the draft with either of those Notre Dame running backs, I would be thrilled. I'm going to see. I know the Wake Forest guy. Jadarian Price is number 2. Justice Haynes. Justice Haynes isn't bad at Michigan. I know he got hurt the second half of the year. Oh, the 2 guys from Penn State. I was a huge fan. And Katron Allen, so Nick Singleton will probably get all the love from Penn State. He's a very good running back. Katron Allen, if you want a bruising, physical running back who you could probably get in the 7th round, Katron Allen would be my guy. So watch out for him. Some people do have him as a 5th running back there, but Katron Allen's my guy. He did have 1,300 yards this season, but Katron Allen's an absolute stud. 5'11", 217 pounds. Anytime I watch Penn State, this guy was popping off the screen for me. 6.2 yards a clip. So yeah, Katron Allen would be probably my biggest draft crush outside of Jeremiah Love. But yeah, if you guys made it to the end of today's show, appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. Just hit me with a SKOL down below in the comments section. And we'll get on out of here. As always, SKOL Vikes. Alrighty. Everybody, what's going on? Lego Foa, how you doing? Yeah, Katron Allen's a stud. Go watch his stuff after you guys are done with this live show. Big time stuff there. All right, but we're going to get on out of here. Appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. Oh, news. I have not told you guys about this all week. We got a watch party this weekend. We're going to be going live for the Bears-Packers game on Saturday. So if you guys aren't doing anything Saturday night, it'll just be an old-school watch party. I don't really know who I'm going to be rooting for. I really don't like the Chicago Bears, but also I can't root for the Green Bay Packers. So we'll be live here on the channel for that. Would really appreciate if you guys could tune in, have some fun, just like an old-school watch party for us. Since we don't get our own playoff watch party, we'll go watch some NFC North football. So Bears-Packers. You guys could tune in then, and we'll get on out of here. Appreciate you guys for tuning in today, and as always, SKOL Vikes.